Welcome to the Swim Swam podcast. I'm today's host, Coleman Hodges. Joining us today, he is the assistant coach for the Cal Berkeley Golden Bears. He was an assistant coach on the World Championship staff this summer for Team USA. We are sitting down with Noah Yanchulis. Noah, thanks so much for joining us today. How's it going?
Good, Coleman. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This is an awesome opportunity.
The Swim Swam podcast is sponsored by Commit Swimming, the only club management software built exclusively for swim teams. Since 2015, Commit has been the go-to for coaches writing workouts, planning seasons, and tracking performance data. National level coaches around the world rely on it every day. Now Commit brings that same swimming first design to team management, combining workouts, performance, meet entries, billing, communication, websites, volunteer tracking, and more, all under one roof. Make the switch off Go Motion to a simpler, more powerful solution. Book your demo today at commitswimming.com. Absolutely. I'm excited to talk to you. It was very exciting to see a couple of young assistant coaches make their way onto the Team USA staff this summer. And I definitely took note of that when it happened. And I think it's really exciting that these younger coaches are getting the opportunities like that. But we're gonna get to that in good time. I kind of want to start just with the here and now, the present. You're in the midst of the college season. We're just getting into mid-season invite portion of the college season. But so far, how have you just kind of gotten into this collegiate season with another spring and summer of coaching with the Golden Bears under your belt?
Yeah, no, it's been good. And I think that every year that I've been here, this is going into year 3 now for me. So every year the rhythms have gotten a little bit more comfortable, but this year obviously was unique in the fact that I was traveling a lot this summer. But coming back this fall was great. We have a huge freshman class. We've got about 20 in our freshman class that came to campus in the fall. And so that adjustment with kind of the bulk of our team being young now, it's kind of a new dynamic. And obviously everyone knows that we graduated out quite a few points on both the men's and women's side last year. And so it's just been an interesting dynamic with these freshmen coming in, but they have been leading the charge and it's been a lot of fun with that group. And so now we're, just 3 weeks out of our midseason meet at Minnesota and, people are ready to swim fast. So they're kind of itching to go. It's starting to get to that point where people are dragging a little bit, just getting a little bit tired. Midterms just passed, everybody's starting to feel it a little bit, but it's been really good.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but you came into Cal and they were this combined program, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they were combined when I got there, I think a year and a half before I got there. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And had you worked with combined programs before? Because just from the outside, we're so used to, the Cal men and the Cal women kind of being these two separate juggernauts, this two-headed beast. And now, obviously come postseason at conference or NCAAs, that it's two different things, two different meets, but now it's this combined beast where they're training together, I'm sure. But also I'm sure the team dynamics are very different than what they were. But how have you kind of managed to incorporate yourself into that? And what groups are you normally working with, or be it men, women, or both, on a week-to-week basis, especially just this fall?
Yeah. So, obviously like this version of Cal is the only version that I know. And so it's been, even from the time I got here, it was pretty seamless and pretty apparent that it was kind of one team, and it was the men and women training together and going to meets together and all that kind of stuff. And that has been sort of Dave's vision for this team. And that's how Dave wants to operate is this is a combined program and we're all helping each other, get better. And so for me, it's the first year I was here, I guess the first summer I was here really was the end of the summer of 23. And I was here in more of a volunteer capacity. And I was sort of doing whatever Dave needed me to do, whether that was like filling water bottles or running to the store to grab stuff or getting times on deck or writing a set here or there, that was sort of my role. And Still how I'm operating today is like whatever Dave needs, that's what I'm going to do. But I will say that I do have a little bit more autonomy now and being able to write a couple more sets and working a little bit more closely with our distance and 400 IM group. Some of the upper middle distance folks, that's kind of where I've landed. And that's kind of where I guess Dave trusts me with what I'm doing. And it's been really cool to see the team and the dynamic sort of shift, from the time I got here to now, just in terms of I think the way that the team operates really is one where the women's team, as they're coming up now, we have a uber talented freshman class. And I don't think that's something that we're trying to shy away from or act like that's not the case. And so that has been really cool. And so for me to see that, and I think just from a group perspective, last year, I was working again, still with the distance group primarily. And, there were days when there would be 3 or 4 people in that distance group with me. And now there are days where there's like 23 or 24 people in that group. And so that's been really fun, to have sort of a bigger contingent of some people that can do those 200s and up rather than the 200s and down, at least, for what I'm doing. But, I always say, and I will continue to say, I'm just extremely grateful that Dave has even given me this opportunity in the first place, and being able to be here and work with these athletes has been just inspiring every day. So
let's dive into that a little more. Just like you said, this fall, the last couple of months, a distance group of 23 or up to 23 or 24 athletes. I mean, that's mondo. that is huge. That's so many athletes swimming a long way. I mean, when you have a group that big, how are you managing it? How are you maybe tweaking sets, and who are you pitting against each other, or just how are you organizing the lanes so that every athlete is getting what they need?
Yeah, for sure. And I think when I think of that big group that I talked about, the 23, that's usually Monday afternoons. We have our sort of long IM group. And so it's a split between the 500 freestylers and the 400 IM group. And the reason it's so big that day is because some of our 200 guys, like Keaton Jones, for example, will come up to the 500 group. Not that he's always thrilled about that, but he does really well in that group.
Yeah.
But, when you look across that group, it's really easy to have competition. We've got people from, on the guys' side, we probably have 8 to 10 of those guys that have been sub 420 in their lifetime. And a lot of those guys that have been 411 or faster, and or guys that have converted to 411 or faster. And so it's nice to have that competition on the guys' side, and on the women's side as well. It's just this collection of girls now that are sub 440, obviously with Claire and Ella Cosgrove coming in. That was sort of a big bump there. And then we just have some quickly improving people on the women's side in the 500 and the distance events as well, including like Alexa McDevitt, Camille Henvo as well, Ava Chavez. I'm going to forget somebody and I'm going to feel terrible, but you get it. And then the 400 IM group's cool because that group will peel off. So we'll warm up together on those days, but then the 400 IM group will go sort of into some different, more specific 4 IM work. And that group's a little bit smaller. So we can be like pretty specific in terms of like, altering that work for them as they need it. But that group is really, really fun to coach. And that's what I look forward to over the weekend as I'm getting back to the week. So,
yeah. I'm not even a distance person. I don't have a deep appreciation for distance swimming, but it sounds like that would be really fun, especially with, again, just a group that big. You think of distance groups and normally, like you said, it's like 3 or 4 athletes sometimes just chugging along, but it seems like it would be a lot of fun to swim distance if you had 20 friends with you.
Yeah. It's a very good environment. And, they let each other have it. It's very hard for me to slow them down sometimes, even if I'm trying to. And that's kind of what you want, though. That's what makes it special. So,
yeah, is coaching this mid to distance group something you're comfortable with? Were you a distance swimmer yourself, or have you been coaching distance swimming before you arrived at Cal?
So I swam in the distance group when I was in college. My coach, Ron Farina, who's one of my favorite people in the world at Seton Hall, he had me train with the distance group. I was primarily a 200 and 500 freestyler though. And so I just trained up, and I think I sort of gained my appreciation for it then. And then from a coaching background, when I was, I guess the only other coaching job I've had before this was at Oklahoma Christian University with Josh Davis. And so that was where I sort of, I guess, fell in love with coaching. And Josh was, really open to letting me sort of try my spots at what I wanted to do, with in terms of coaching. And so we had some really good distance swimmers there. And that was sort of where I kind of found my sweet spot, I guess. But I feel pretty comfortable with the middle distance and upper groups as well. And it was just cool too. And, that my previous school I was coaching at in Oklahoma, it was cool because I did get to work with the sprinters as well. And I think that was nice. The first year that I was here at Cal was that I sort of had pieces of every group. I was kind of Dave was kind of letting me tour around the team a little bit and get to work with everybody, so to say. So that was really cool.
Yeah. So you've gotten to experience a wide breadth of working with different athletes, but you've landed in this mid-distance group at Cal, which is again now very stout. And I mean, you named a lot of names. I'll throw a couple more out there. You've got Gabe Jett, you've got Freddie Klein, you've got freshman Ryan Arisman, and the Whiffen twins are training at Cal now on the for the men's side. Has this fall, who has impressed you, or who has maybe even surprised you in some of these workouts, with especially just with so many new faces, and then with so many returning faces getting to compete with all of these new faces?
Yeah, I would say like it's more of a question of who hasn't surprised me. I think that when we look at the group, there's something every day, whether it's that Monday afternoon I talked about or one of our other 8 sessions that week, where it's like, yeah, okay, this is a pretty good group. Like, Ryan has been I guess from just looking at the times, Ryan has sort of been the standout this fall so far, and he's just really adapted to what we're doing really well. Like 8:43 at Stanford was awesome. And so he's been 4:15 this fall and 3:44 in the 4 a.m. But the group as a whole, I mean, we have guys that are sort of like on the come up. Some of the people in that group, Julian Rousseau and Ian Platts Mills, Norby Klontz as well. We have some of these guys that are doing a really good job just training and having those guys to chase. And obviously you mentioned the Whiffen twins, Lucas Henvo training with us. It's like those guys set the tone, and nobody wants to lose. And so it's, even I'll give you the example of I think it was last Friday, we were doing a set where it was 100 smooth and then like 100 5 seconds better. And it was not supposed to be anything super aggressive. Like it was on 130 long course, and the 100, it was 4 rounds of that. And the 100 smooth, ended up being like 125. And then the 5 seconds better ended up getting down to like 52 at the end for some of those guys. And so like, they just sort of made it, it's hard for them not to race, but that is, for me, I love that. And eventually we're going to have to tighten that up a little bit, but just to let them go and do that was awesome. And so, Lucas was saying to me yesterday, just like, yeah, I thought I was going to cruise, like go that 52 and be fine. And he looks over, and Ryan and all the rest of the guys are like just right there behind him. So it was really, really cool.
Yeah. I mean, I did a video recently, but just talking about some of the top distance groups, training environments in the country. And it's like, there are now a lot, and it's almost like staggering with how many specifically that, there's a lot of great training groups all over the country, but specifically distance swimming feels like we're kind of in this renaissance where it's just getting faster and faster and faster. And there's so many places, Cal being at the forefront, where it seems like there's a lot going on in that area. And it's very exciting. I'm curious just in terms of sets, or when you sit down to write some of these sets, I mean, are you looking at total yardage? Are you looking at energy systems hit? Like what are you focusing on when you're writing, I guess, for example, a Monday afternoon practice?
Yeah, I think that it's a couple things. Like one, it's just the general season plan of like making sure we're at the yardage we need to be at, and making sure like we're hitting our colors and stuff like that. But I think the biggest thing that I think about as I write the sets is like, how are we going to put all these people, as I said, some of those practices, the groups are kind of big, but how are we going to create the most competitive environment? And so sort of designing the sets in a way where, you're going to get people to be able to compete at the end is fun. So making it relevant, race relevant, is really important to me as well. But at the end of the day, it's like, if I can get them to race and just go after it, that's great.
So in terms of just kind of building group dynamic, group cohesion, I think you are coaching on deck with a couple of the best in the biz, and historically to do that with Dave Durden and David Marsh. You've been on deck for a few years now. Just what do you feel like you have picked up from them? I feel like every time I've been to Cal and you're able to witness Dave Durden in motion, you feel like you've been enveloped into the world that he has created. Like you're in the bubble. And I'm curious, what has it been like for you as an up and coming coach working with these athletes to be in that bubble and to be in that world? And as you said, kind of operate in the flow of a few seasons of it now.
Yeah, I pinch myself because like I honestly still sometimes I'm like I'm on deck at Cal with Dave and David, you know what I mean? And so that to me is like I'm just so lucky to be here and so grateful to be here. I think that they both have very unique styles in their own way, and I think that it's sort of, and this has been discussed obviously, but it's sort of full circle for them to be working together again, you know, on the back end of their careers, you know, or maybe not the back end, but sort of the back end. And I think that from Dave, it's cool because Dave has more charisma than anybody I've ever met in my life. And when Dave talks, you listen. And when Dave talks, like you believe him too. And that's the cool thing about Dave. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that I've adapted that charisma, but it's certainly something that I'm thinking about, and I'm trying to sort of, you know, emulate the way that he does things, because it's really powerful. And I have the notebook out. I'm taking notes like literally every day. Like it's, you know, and so that's, I think what Dave's superpower is building the trust with his athletes. And I think that to me has been one of the biggest realizations I've had since coming here, is like the trust between coach and athlete is everything in this sport. And regardless of the sets you write or the training group you have or this or that, like if you don't trust, you know, what you're doing, why you're doing it, it's hard to be really good. And Dave is amazing at that. I can't say enough good things about it, but kind of like you said, it's sort of hard to put into words the way that Dave operates, because, you know, you can say all this stuff, but like when you're there with him and when I met him for the first time, it was like, yeah, okay, I get why this guy's so good, you know? And so that's been really cool. And then for Marsh, he has been just a huge mentor for me in general. You know, he was sort of the person that I got connected with initially when I came out to Cal, and sort of like helped kind of get me here in a sense. And he is just so innovative and you know, curious with his approach to the sport. And so that's what I love about Marsh, is that like he has sort of made me realize there's probably 10,000 ways to tell an athlete something. You just got to find the right way. And somehow Marsh can find all 10,000 ways, you know? So he's just like, he's really innovative and really curious and like always learning. You know, I can't tell you how many Instagram reels I get from this guy every day, you know, that he's sending me just about life, swimming, whatever. But I think Marsh, obviously, like being the technical wizard that he is, I think that I've, you know, developed my, you know, technical eye a lot from him. But again, it's just like being around them and trying to just soak it in as much as I can has been a really, really good opportunity. And I don't think that I could get this anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, it's still kind of a wonder to me that those two are back on deck training, you know, coaching and training athletes together. It is a cool full circle moment, and to see what Durden has built at Cal, what Marsh has added. I mean, it's like, it's pretty powerful to look at. So it's great to see that you've been included in that fold as well. And then just on that same topic, as you're working with the athletes of Cal, especially coming from Oklahoma Christian with Josh, like how do you feel like you've adjusted maybe your lens or your scope with working with some of these athletes who are, you know, making Olympic teams, making world championship teams, going to NCAAs?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think a lot of what I just talked about with Dave and David is sort of some of how I'm adapting and, you know, to coaching these athletes, because they're sort of, you know, more or less teaching how to work with the most elite. And I think at the end of the day, when I think about my time at Oklahoma Christian and my time now, all of these people are college athletes. They're getting a degree and they want to be faster at swimming. So that part, I was kind of happily surprised that it's the same, and that's really great. That some of the kids I coached in Oklahoma Christian, it was all the kids I coached there it was just as exciting every day to go into practice and help make them better as it is now. But I think one of the big differences is that, when you have these athletes that are at such a high caliber, the expectations are way higher, and not just for themselves, but from external sources, from the country or from, businesses that they have to deal with or whatever it may be. Yeah. And I think there's a lot that goes into that. So I think the psychological part of this and learning how to sort of not be a psychologist, but be a psychologist has been really, really interesting. So that dynamic of working on the mental and emotional side of the sport was something that I probably didn't do quite as much, in Oklahoma Christian. And now, being able to develop that. And like I said, watching the way that Dave and David and Josh as well operate with kind of the high level athletes, it's something that I'm developing every single day.
Yeah. I feel like that is a great jumping off point to kind of go back and talk about this summer, because I'm guessing you got some experience in the mental side of coaching during your trip to Thailand and Singapore with Team USA. Just starting at trials in June at Indy. Yeah. What do you feel like your role was with Cal at that meet? And did you have any sort of, had anyone told you or indicated to you that you might be put on the Team USA staff if things were to go a certain way at trials?
Yeah. I wouldn't say that there was too much like in the lead up. But you asked about my role at the meet. And I think like when I think about my role at any of our meets, or any coach's role at meet, but what I really like to think of, we need to make sure the athletes have everything they need at all times, whether that's nutrition or pre-race stuff or, post-race, getting their stuff back to the team area, whatever it may be. So, I'm just really at meets to serve. And that's my, what I feel like my purpose is. But as we went through the meet, and I think might have been the first night, we had a couple guys qualify. I think that was the 100 free, if I remember, but whatever so we had a couple guys qualify. And I remember, a couple days, maybe the next morning, Dave was kind of like, we might have a lot of people qualify here. And I'm like, yeah, it looks like we're going to have some people qualify. And he sort of said it in sort of the Dave kind of way where it was a little bit like ambiguous and I didn't really know, but he was just kind of like Greg might talk to you, and I was like, I said, for me, I was trying to I was putting the pieces together, but I still wasn't really sure, and then the next day or whenever the last day of the meet, Greg kind of pulled me aside and was like, would you like to do this? And obviously I'm just, again, Dave is the greatest for allowing me this opportunity. And, it was really cool though. And I think it was sort of surreal too in the moment. And I mean, I can say this, but, Greg asked, or Dave said, just when Greg asked you this question, if he asked you, like, make sure you tell him you got to check with your wife first, because that's always a good thing to say, And so he's like coaching me up on like how to respond to this question. So Greg said something to me, and I just said, I said, that sounds amazing. This is so awesome, but let me talk to my wife first. And so, which I did, and she was so fun. But it was great.
Well, I also have to imagine with the relationship that Dave Durden and Greg Meehan have. You say you said that, and it just in my head, Greg Meehan's like, yeah, okay, of course, like the most Dave Durden answer you can give.
100%. Yeah, exactly. And he kind of laughed too. So maybe he knew,
But no, that's funny. I love that Durden was coaching you on how to accept the coaching role.
Right. Yeah. I needed it. Yeah.
It's never he never turns it off. But
exactly.
So do you feel like you learned or had any specific takeaways just from the trials meet? Just moving through that, not even with having a role on Team USA on the horizon, but just moving through a trials meet where you had been through this significant season with Cal. You had been working with the athletes and were more familiar with them. And then, a lot of them do end up making this world's team and having really big time performances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it was cool to sort of, like I said, last year I was starting to write more sets and starting to sort of contribute more to the direct practice environment in that way. And so getting to work with some of the athletes more closely and kind of more like have a group that I was more consistently working with. And so, you know, I would not as much with the sprinters. I'm working with Jack and Brooks every once in a while, but really working closely with Gabriel and Keaton and Destin a little bit, and then Dario was kind of with those sprinter guys as well. But it was just cool to see, like, and sort of know the mental space that both those guys were in, at least the guys that I was working with more closely, and them sort of coming to me and wanting to trust me with warm up and trust me with pre-race stuff and things like that. And so that was just cool to see that. And then obviously to see it come to fruition of like somebody like a Gabriel Jett who has been trying to do this for a long time and like, certainly like long overdue for him, I think. And it was cool to see. And he had a really big, mental breakthrough. I think that was all of his, hard work that he sort of realized after trials in 2024, where it's like, yeah, I need to adjust a little bit. And he certainly made the adjustment, but it was just cool. It's cool to be a part of. And I was there for trials at 24, but that was just like a little bit more fresh for me. So that was like, running around and getting the guys water bottles and stuff like that. And this one was just more like, I felt like I, was a little bit more in the mix. So it was really cool.
Yeah. I remember at trials this past summer, when we talked to Gabe Jett at one point, I had talked to Gabe about a year ago. So kind of in the midst of his senior season, and he kind of told me about this mental breakthrough he had after Olympic trials and how the changes he needed to make, and seemed like he made those in his training, and it paid off a lot for him his senior season. And then we obviously saw kind of the fruits of those labor at trials in the long course pool as well. But yeah, he was, we were asking him what's been working, what's been clicking for you. And he said, my coach, Noah Yanchulis, like he shouted you out specifically. And that took me aback a little, because I didn't realize you had been working with him that closely, but also just like, okay, wow. Yeah. Like Noah's doing something right. And I think that was a big deal. And then to see you get named to the staff as well was exciting. And also just like, all right, this is happening. You're moving up in the coaching world, I think. And certainly you are getting some experience, or like you said, just you're a bit more in the mix. And so that kind of became evident from the outside. But then after trials, you get named to the staff. And then how do you move through those next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, leading up to traveling to Thailand with Team USA? Just kind of, does that look different than maybe the pre-trials?
I mean, a little bit. And we had the group training there for the summer, people that were training for Tier Pro championships at the end of the summer as well. So we had a big training group back at home still. But yeah, no, just sort of build them back up a little bit and bring them back down a little bit. But it was all a lot of the same, And so the nice thing is that we have that training group, a pretty big training group that stays there, usually stays in Berkeley for the summer. And so, things didn't really change. We didn't really skip a beat, and to get back and to be able to just get right to it was really great. And so I feel like the guys were just moving really well, and like everybody was obviously on a high after trials. And so it's sort of easy to carry that momentum. But again, not for our day to day, stayed pretty similar as we work toward leaving for Thailand. So
yeah. And then just getting to Thailand, what did that look like for you and for your athletes? Were you working with just the Cal guys? Were you working with different athletes? And I'm always just so curious what a Team USA training camp looks like in terms of the day-to-day and the minutia, because at that point, you're getting these athletes ready for the big meet of the summer, but everyone is kind of so individualized and getting ready for their own different slate of events, rather than, maybe a college championships where you have this group swimming this event, this group swimming this event, etc.
Yeah, I think it was an awesome dynamic out there in Thailand. And sort of the travel was pretty easy. Everybody flew, or a big group flew to Seoul and then flew over to Thailand, and then another group flew to I don't know, somewhere else, maybe Singapore and then Thailand or something like that. So we all ended up meeting, at the training center or at the resort. And but as we got there, Greg had sort of set the tone, and Braden as well, before we even left, which was like, this is going to be, kind of a team effort here as we get there. So we were training in groups, college coaches, whoever, had their swimmers. So I had all the Cal guys, obviously. And then Henry McFadden was training with us as well. So I was working closely with Dan for Henry's stuff. And then, every coach sort of had their people. And then the people whose, primary coaches weren't there, home coaches weren't there, they would cycle in, to some of the other groups. But I think one of the cool things that Greg and Braden did, and obviously I have no like prior knowledge or experience of how this goes. So to me, it just seemed like, like what it was. But there'd be a lot of days where we'd warm up as a team together, do relay starts together. So we're getting like the right looks, off different people. But I think that made it fun. And then there was a few mornings randomly where like I don't know, we would just combine some of the group. Like, so it would be like the UVA people and the Cal people and some of Braden's people. So we just would do like kind of little practices like that, where if the work was similar enough, we'd do that. I think Ron had Claire and Bella over with us the one day just on practices that it worked out. And that was really cool too. Obviously, like with Claire, coming to Cal in the fall, it was nice to get acquainted with her and with Ron. And that was actually really nice for the transition of getting her here to Cal. But as far as the Team USA part goes, it was cool. And then Greg just really set the tone from the beginning and did a really good job. I think that I actually listened to Braden's podcast that he did with you like a week ago or something like that. I know that was a while ago, but he sort of said that, when Greg speaks, he does have a little bit of the Dave Durden charisma in him, where like when he gets up, everybody listens. And I think he did a good job setting the tone for the captains, who then set the tone for the rest of the squad. So that was cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was very excited personally when Greg was announced as the national team director. I think he's a great leader. From all the conversations I've had with him, I think he's a great person. And so I will be very excited to see what he does for the national team, and with the national team heading into, this summer, LA 2028 beyond. But yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say he couldn't have done a better job. And I'm sure the question is coming, but like handling the stress of everything that happened out there, and he just sort of kept his game face on and stayed really composed. I think that his whole vision really is just like, how are we going to be the best we can be in 2028? That was a lot of the conversations were surrounding that, in the camp. And so even for because there was a lot of rookies on the team, like there's also a lot of like fresh coaches as well. So it was just like a lot of new staff, everybody, so the whole thing was new for a lot of people. And I think Greg sort of shaping the group with the focus of LA 2028 being where we want to be really good. And like, these are going to be your teammates, hopefully in, 4 years from now. And so, or 3 years from now. So it was nice to see that. And the team bought into that right away. And so obviously through some of the struggles that we had out there, I think that the resiliency kind of showed as we got toward the end of the meet.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting to hear that there's already that vision, right? And it's like at that point, we weren't even a year out from Paris. Yeah. And obviously you're only as good as your next swim, or however you want to say it. It's like, that's the athlete mentality, right? Of just keep moving forward. But we're already focusing on LA 2028. And that, I think, exemplifies what a big deal it is. And obviously a home Olympics, you want to be at your best. But the fact that the national team director at the World Championship training camp is like, listen, this is our focus. Actually, we're focusing on the Olympics in 3 years, not this meet, which I'm obviously, it's a huge paraphrase. And I don't know if that's exactly what he meant, but it is cool to hear that he has that vision, and he's already shaping the team to have that vision as well. And it was, like you said, there were so many rookies, especially on the men's side. I mean, the women's team, I don't know if they can get much better, but I mean, the men's team, a lot of new faces, a lot of very young faces. And then obviously, as you alluded to, there's this team-wide sickness that you have to start dealing with in training camp and then continue to deal with as you go to the meet.
Yeah.
Bringing back to what we mentioned previously of just the mental side of coaching, right? And managing athletes' heads and where they're at, especially as have lost 20 pounds and are supposed to go swim and try to swim at their very best. So yeah, I guess can you take me through your experience with that and just how did you end up being able to navigate and help your athletes navigate through this experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think for me personally, I was really lucky. I didn't come down with the sickness, so that was that was great.
Nice.
But I think honestly that just put me in a position to be able to like really like make sure I was dialed into what our guys needed and everything. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think that the messaging was really like taking care of yourself first and foremost is the priority. It's like we don't need to rush to get back to the pool to train. That's not what this is about. Like these missing 2 days isn't going to break you. You know what I mean? But trying to fight through this and swim while you're really sick could hurt. And again, some of it was just really framing it in the right way where like we don't have guys freaking out too much and they have races on day 5 or 6 of the meet. Like you're going to be okay if you get through this. As you got sick in the training camp, you're going to be okay. And we kind of saw that as people worked their way through the meet. And I think like the world saw it as we worked through the meet, is like we sort of got better as the meet went on, which was, and the camp itself was going really, really well. Like some of the people, some of our suit up swims, things like that, some of the sets people were doing, it was like, this is pretty good. And then literally, I think it was maybe 3 days before we left, we had a couple people get sick and it started to snowball a little bit. And I think just keeping our guys in a positive state of mind, like we've done this training for the last, basically since August, really, they hadn't stopped training from the beginning of the college season. And they understood that. And I think they did a really good job. I think Jack had said, and Jack and I sort of joke about this, that like, this is like a t-shirt from his club team. And the quote is that character sets the ceiling, and he's going to laugh if he ever hears this. But, and so that was sort of like the mantra that Jack had. But in my mind, that was sort of what it was. It's like this is not about trying to like get back to the pool and try to prove yourself in that way. But like, if you have the mental stability to like trust that what the work you've done is good, and then also to be a really good teammate in that moment. Because we had some guys that were swimming not great, and that's okay given the circumstances. But then to see some of those guys still trying to pick up their teammates and like get them amped up and get them what they needed for their races and things like that, that was really cool to see. And so I think that was sort of, as a staff, also sort of what we were preaching, like we've got to be in this together. Like, and I think that the athletes rallied around that really well. So
that is the name of the game, I assume, especially in a situation like that, because I think every swimmer, coach, staff member can relate to a time when you're not swimming fast, you're sick. Why? And you're supposed to be happy, right?
Right.
You're supposed to be excited, or you're trying to lift your teammates up. It's like, that's hard to do. Yeah. That is really hard to pick yourself up when you're at an all-time physical and mental low with your sport. But if, like you said, if everyone around you is doing that, if you're setting the ceiling to be there, right, then it becomes a lot easier, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. It's just like how we act when we're at our lowest is really like what defines us, I feel like. And again, it was just top to bottom, like literally some guys losing 20 pounds. And it was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how we're going to do this. And I'm just really proud of how they fought, and not just the Cal, not just our Cal guys, but the team in general. I mean, there were some people that had like superhero swims, in my opinion. Like, and I know, like, not being on the inside, like there just was, there's some people I was like, there's no way. And then there was a way, and they did it. You know what I mean? So it was really cool to watch that. And that, again, just another sort of eye-opening thing for me to be like, yeah, these are actually some of the greatest athletes in the world. And sometimes they can do it when it's that bad,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a superpower in itself, right? It's just being able to get up whenever. And I feel like we see that from some athletes who, just swim fast anytime, no matter what. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a superpower. And that's what makes a lot of these athletes the best in the world, as you said. Was there a swim that stood out to you at that meet, be it from Team USA or elsewhere, that you got to witness as a coach or just as a fan? Was there a moment that you're like, wow, this was really mind blowing or incredible or inspiring, or all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of great ones, and I think obviously like the first one that comes to mind, just because he's a Cal guy, is Jack's 45.9. It was like, come on, this is ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
So that was pretty special. But honestly, the women's 800 was like the greatest swim race I've ever seen in my life. And we, you know, we have like the allotted amount of deck passes to go out. We have a lot of deck passes to go out on deck at Worlds or whatever during the races. And like for that particular race, we just cycled them all back and we got up. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but you know, watching that race was like, one, it's like the greatest swimmer of all time, the greatest, you know, and it was a historic swim from that standpoint. But just like, I've never wanted to like rewatch a race so badly in my life. You know what I mean? And so from the swim nerd side of things in me, like that was one of the coolest things ever. And obviously there was a lot of incredible swims across the board from other countries as well. But watching that women's 800 was incredible.
I don't know if I've ever seen a race like get so hyped up and then deliver more.
Yeah.
I'm truly maybe the greatest race I've ever seen, because you had, you know, these three women who were all in it, and there was so much on the line, and there was already so much build up. And that was a really good one. And then to see the outcome of it, and to know, you know, I like everyone has been on Katie's journey with her. And as you said, Katie Ledecky, one of the, if not the greatest swimmer of all time.
Yeah.
And everyone has a Katie Ledecky story. And then to see that she's still doing it, it's just, it is breathtaking a little bit. So
I think it was like, you know, you're watching the race, and we're like, and I think in the back of everyone's mind, it's like, obviously she's going to do this. Like, that's what we've gotten like accustomed to that and a little bit spoiled with that. And like, she does it again, and a couple of lead changes in there, but it was just such a good race. I'm going to watch it after this.
I know. I'm like, all right, let's get on with this, so I can go watch this race. No, and it's, you know, I think the craziest part about where Katie is at now is that now she is being challenged, which we've kind of never seen that happen before, especially not in the 800 and 1500 like this. And then she's still finding ways to win. And awesome. It is awesome. All right. So that was Worlds in a nutshell. Do you feel like after that experience, you came home? I don't know if you got any downtime. Maybe you just went right back into coaching, but did you get to process that experience a bit and just kind of maybe look back on it, or have takeaways, or say, okay, like, this is what I've learned from this whirlwind of a world championships?
Yeah. I mean, I think that this answer could be like an hour long in itself. I think after every meet, even our dual meets, I try to sit down and really like take account of what happened and why things happened the way they did, or what could be better, and things like that, and really make sure I'm analyzing. But I think what was really cool, like from the Team USA side of things, it was really interesting just to watch I think the camp was the coolest part for me personally. And I like, outside the sickness of, I think watching how the camp operates, like with the national team and having everyone together, that was just like something that I had only like imagined how it may be. And it couldn't have gone better, in my opinion. And like, until the sickness stuff, but the way that was run was really cool. And so like, I think seeing how other coaches do things was really interesting. I think being able to be on deck with some of these other awesome coaches and being able to pick their brains about what they're doing was awesome. So there was a lot of reflection in that, from that side of things. But then looking at like on the world stage, when we actually got to the meet, not only like working our way through an 8-day meet, because that's difficult in its own right. But again, it was more of like, for me, outside of the actual performances that we had or the prep that we had for those performances, being able to learn from other coaches and even watch what other athletes from other countries are doing in the water. I think that was just like being immersed in that, like in the world of aquatics like that, was really special. And so I couldn't tell you how many different people like I got to have conversations with and things like that. And so without going into like super detail, which would just take a while, I think just being able to be like fully immersed in what where I was and what I was doing was probably the biggest thing for me. And I did get a vacation right after, which was really nice. My wife flew out we actually went back to Thailand, which everyone told me not to do, but we went back to Thailand and we vacationed for a week in Thailand. So it was really nice.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't get sick, right?
Didn't get sick. Yeah.
Hey, if it works, yeah, no, I've had a ton of friends go on vacation there or travel to there, and so that's great that you got to have that time with your wife, but also have those takeaways and sit down and be able to reflect on such an impactful experience.
Yeah.
So just moving forward into the rest of Cal's season, it's a very new team, right? You said it. There's 20 incoming freshmen. A lot of big leaders and big scorers graduated this season. Do you feel like the, I guess, messaging from the coaching staff has changed at all from last season with that in mind, or do you feel like there's still a similar, I guess, message being sent from you guys to this Cal team now?
I mean, I think from the messaging is the same in the sense of like we're trying to like put forth our best self, and Dave always sort of preaches like, actions, attitudes, and behaviors need to align with the goals that you have, and so that's sort of the staple of what we're doing always. But I think that almost without saying, it's pretty apparent that we do have a really young team, and so it's more of a how can our upperclassmen mentor our freshmen and mentor our sophomores as they're going to end up being the sort of the biggest group of leaders that this team has ever had in terms of like sheer numbers. And so I think that's been cool and a really great opportunity for our relatively small senior class on both the men's and women's side to be able to actually step into a leadership role and step into a position where they can have a voice and be really impactful in that way. And so I think that has been sort of what we challenged and what Dave has challenged the upperclassmen with is how can you guys be the best leaders that you can be to sort of set up this future team for success. And so again, like that has been really, really smooth, to be honest. And as these freshmen have come in and acclimated, I think that this has been a really cohesive group. And so I'm excited to see, how Minnesota goes in a couple of weeks here. And, hopefully people are going to get a little bit of rest and we're going to swim pretty fast, but it should be fun.
I'm just to wrap this up, I'm just curious. I lived in Berkeley for a bit. It is an awesome place. It is so uniquely itself.
Yes.
It is just the wild hippie outpost in the Bay Area. It's so many forward thinkers there. So unique. Do you feel like this huge freshman class, there's been an overarching theme or thing that they've had to adjust to just being in Berkeley, and being at Cal, just because I feel like it is such a different environment from anywhere else that I've personally been to, at least. But is there anything that you've found yourself having to guide them with that maybe outside of just training and being a part of the Cal Bear team?
I wouldn't say like anything particularly. I think Berkeley itself being, such an eclectic place and having so many different little pockets of life here. I think that everybody that comes to Berkeley knows what Berkeley is and has a spot in their heart for Berkeley, and I think that like me personally, we just moved here to Berkeley. We were living in Lafayette about 10 miles away, and I just literally I love this place and had to get closer. So we're living in Berkeley now. But I think, the freshmen, I'd say the one thing we're trying to get them to do is to be really safe on their scooters outside the pool, But I would say that it's nothing from a Berkeley, living in Berkeley standpoint that, we feel like we have to coach them up on too much, just because the people that come to Berkeley They love Berkeley and understand that like this is a college like in a city. We don't have a gated campus here. Like we have we have a college in the middle of a city, and I think that's what makes it really special. But again, yeah, keeping these kids safe on the scooters, that's the goal.
You've been listening to the Swim Swam podcast. Stay tuned for new episodes every week. You can take Swim Swam podcast on the go by subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. Look for links in the description below, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos as well.